Davidson's voice cracked through the stillness of the Central Motors garage like a whip. "What the hell is this? A kid in my shop during an official inspection?" Maya Thompson, a 12-year-old girl, crouched next to the engine of a 2018 Chevrolet, her small hand still gripping a wrench tightly. She had gotten out of school just 20 minutes ago, and as usual, came by to help her father, Marcus, the lead mechanic who had headed the team for the past 15 years. Marcus hurried to his daughter's side, his voice tense. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davidson." "Maya, go home. This isn't the time." But Davidson raised a hand to stop him, his eyes cold and sharp. The 50-year-old owner of one of the city's largest auto repair chains was conducting a surprise inspection that could very well shut down Central Motors. His perfectly tailored suit and gleaming Italian shoes clashed with the greasy tool-strewn shop around him. "Wait, Marcus, let her stay. In fact, I've got a better idea." Maya slowly stood up, her gaze meeting the eyes of the man every employee feared. At 12, she had already learned to recognize that look, the look of someone who had decided what she was capable of based solely on her age and the color of her skin. "Do you know, Marcus, your little girl looked pretty confident working on that engine." Davidson walked toward the back of the shop, where a Porsche 911 had been sitting for the past 3 days. "This one's a special case. My best mechanics from other branches have tried everything, but the engine still won't start. We can't even get a diagnostic readout." Davidson let out a laugh dripping with mockery. "So why don't we give the expert here a shot? If she can at least identify the issue, I might reconsider shutting this place down." A heavy silence fell over the shop. 8 mechanics exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew the Porsche was a complete mystery. Even Tony, the veteran with 30 years of experience, hadn't been able to figure it out. "Mr. Davidson, she's just a child," Marcus protested, his voice slightly shaky. "Exactly." Davidson crossed his arms, clearly enjoying himself. "A child who, I've heard, spends all day here messing around with cars. Surely she knows as much as you guys, right?" Maya stood still for a few moments. Inside her, something familiar began to stir. That feeling she got when she solved math problems everyone else thought were impossible, or fixed broken electronics neighbors had thrown away. For the past 2 years, she had started noticing tiny details the other mechanics sometimes missed. Strange noises, electrical patterns, inconsistent connections. Her dad had chalked it up to childish curiosity, but Maya knew it was something more. "Okay," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "I'll do it. Did you hear that? She's in." Davidson clapped slowly, as if applauding some cheap circus act. Then he smirked, his tone laced with provocation. "Let's raise the stakes. If she figures it out, I won't just keep the shop open. I'll throw in a bonus for the entire team. But if she fails..." He paused just long enough for dramatic effect. "I think you all know what that means." The entire shop fell silent. No one spoke. Maya stepped toward the Porsche 911, her eyes sharper than ever. Her small hand touched the hood gently, as if she were trying to listen to the soul of the car. In that moment, her face no longer looked like that of a child forced to prove herself to grown-ups. It was the face of a true technician, a young engineer facing a challenge she believed she could solve. Davidson had no idea that for the past 6 months, Maya had been secretly studying advanced technical manuals hidden away in her father's office, the kind of material even senior mechanics rarely touched. And he certainly didn't know that from the moment the Porsche had rolled into the shop, Maya had been forming a hypothesis, a line of reasoning no one else had considered. Under the skeptical eyes of the crew and Davidson's smug grin, Maya stayed composed, confident that she was exactly where she belonged and that she could see what others had missed. She began walking around the Porsche, her eyes scanning every detail of the engine. Each step sketched out a mental map in her mind. Davidson stood back with his arms crossed, clearly savoring the performance he believed he had orchestrated. "Finished yet, princess?" Some of us have real jobs to do, he mocked. The mechanics stood in a half circle. Some looked at Maya with sympathy, others with barely contained curiosity. Tony Martinelli, the shop's most seasoned mechanic, leaned in and muttered to Marcus, "This isn't good, she's just a kid." "I know," Marcus replied through clenched teeth. "But if I stop her now, he'll shut us down on the spot." Maya, as if she heard none of it, kept working. Her small hand glided over various components, pausing at key spots. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like she was pretending, like a child playing dress-up, but Tony saw something different. Maya wasn't randomly poking around. She was following a precise diagnostic order, checking the ignition, then the fuel system, then the electrical. It was the exact process a seasoned mechanic would follow in a proper engine assessment. "Interesting," Maya murmured, just loud enough for herself. Davidson burst out laughing. "What's the matter? That blank stare says it all. Looks like you're about to give up, huh? It's okay. Knowing when to quit is a smart move." But Maya didn't respond. Instead, she calmly crouched down and pointed to a small black box connected to the car's computer system. "This central control unit. Has anyone checked if it's sending the correct signal codes to the system?" Silence fell again. Tony furrowed his brow and stepped closer. No one in the shop, not even the most experienced mechanics, had thought to inspect that tiny controller. It was a relatively new component, and for the older generation of technicians it was practically a mystery. "Of course we checked that," Davidson lied smoothly, his voice full of confidence. "We checked everything. The problem is, this car is way beyond a little girl's capabilities." Maya nodded slightly, not arguing. "Fair enough. It's just that a few months ago, I read something about this type of module." She trailed off, as if she'd accidentally revealed something she shouldn't have. "Where'd you read that?" Tony asked, now genuinely curious. Maya looked over at her father, whose face was filled with surprise. "In the technical manuals in the office, when Dad wasn't paying attention, I borrowed a few to read." Marcus blinked rapidly. "Maya, those are for certified technicians. Some of that stuff is written in specialized English." "I know," Maya said with a simple smile. "That's why I used my phone to translate the hard parts. And, well, there are some videos on YouTube that explain things more clearly." Davidson scoffed with mockery. "Slaya, unbelievable. The kid thinks graduating from YouTube University qualifies her to fix a $200,000 Porsche. You hear this? She's going to solve a problem my own engineers couldn't, using internet videos." Still, Maya said nothing. She kept scanning the engine with an intensity that even Davidson was beginning to find unnerving. "This model has a pretty unique direct fuel injection system," Maya said steadily, her voice now carrying more confidence. "If the central controller doesn't receive the correct electronic ID code, it disables the entire ignition system as a safety precaution." Tony stepped in closer, nodding slowly. "What's an electronic ID code?" "It's like a digital password," Maya explained, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Every original part has its own unique code. If the system detects a part has been swapped without authorization, it shuts everything down. That's how high-end cars prevent theft." Jake, a younger mechanic, cleared his throat. "Never heard of that before." "That's because it's pretty new tech," Maya continued, pointing to a few connectors. "Most trade school programs haven't updated their curriculum yet, but the new manuals have all the info." Davidson was starting to feel the situation slip out of his control. His smug expression was quickly shifting to visible frustration. "Enough. If you're so smart, prove it. Start the car. Or admit you're just a kid playing around with stuff she found online." The tension snapped taut, like a wire pulled to the edge of breaking. Maya took a deep breath, then turned to face Davidson head-on. "All right, but I'll need a few minutes alone with the car and a computer with internet access to download the software needed to reprogram the system." "What software?" Marcus asked, more stunned with each word his daughter spoke. "The software to reset the electronic ID code," Maya replied casually, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It's not hard, you just need to know where to look. She said it so lightly, but the effect was enough to make Davidson's face redden. He crossed his arms, snapping, "I'm not letting some kid mess with the electronic system of a car that's worth more than this whole shop." That's when Tony, the seasoned mechanic, stepped forward. "Let the girl try, Davidson. If she messes it up, you were ready to write this car off anyway, right? But if she pulls it off..." He let the silence hang for a beat, his eyes razor-sharp. "You get a fully working Porsche without spending another dime." Maya looked at Tony with gratitude. This was the opportunity she needed, a crack in the wall of prejudice and power. While everyone thought she'd been just playing around the shop for the past 6 months, she had been quietly decoding some of the most complex electronic systems in modern vehicles. From the moment the Porsche 911 had arrived, Maya had noticed something odd. But at the time, she didn't have the courage to speak up. Now, with her father's career and the futures of everyone in the shop hanging in the balance, Maya had no choice. Davidson gave a reluctant nod. Maya closed her eyes for a second, bracing herself for what came next. What she was about to reveal would silence the entire shop. No one knew that for weeks she had been quietly accessing the shop's internal diagnostic system, studying every similar error she could find. 15 minutes, Maya declared, as she connected her personal laptop to the Porsche's control system. "I just need 15 minutes. Davidson laughed again, but this time the laughter was forced, lacking its usual confidence. Maya's unshakable calm was starting to unsettle him. 15 minutes? To solve a problem my engineers struggled with for 3 days? This girl is delusional." But Maya didn't flinch. Her small fingers moved across the keyboard with speed and precision that made Tony blink in disbelief. These weren't the clumsy keystrokes of a kid playing with a computer. These were the skilled, deliberate actions of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "Dad," Maya said without even looking up, "remember when I told you I'd been reading the technical manuals?" Marcus nodded, still trying to process everything that was happening. "I didn't just read them, I hacked into the system." The air in the shop froze. Davidson stepped forward, his face flushing red. What did you just say?" Maya kept typing, her voice steady. "6 months ago, I accessed the diagnostics network of Porsche North America." "Not to steal anything," she quickly clarified, noticing the stunned looks around her, "but because I wanted to understand why so many cars had the same issue, and why no one here could figure it out." Davidson had now completely lost his composure. "That's impossible. A kid can't break through Porsche's cybersecurity." "You're right," Maya said, finally looking up to meet his eyes. "A normal kid couldn't. But I realized I wasn't normal when I started seeing error patterns no one else could." Lines of code flowed across her laptop screen like a stream of water, seemingly meaningless to everyone else in the room except Maya. She wasn't just a smart kid. She was an analyst, an unrecognized engineer, someone breaking through the limits the adults around her had unconsciously placed. "This Porsche has the exact same failure as 17 other cars across Wilcor's partner network in the last 8 months, Maya said, her voice low but echoing through the shop like a verdict. "Do you know why?" She wasn't asking a question. She was issuing a warning. Davidson tried to hold his composure, but his hands had started to tremble slightly. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything," Maya said firmly, her voice now carrying the weight of authority. "I'm proving it." She turned her laptop so everyone could see the screen. A long list of serial numbers appeared, along with entry dates and service locations. All of them shared one thing in common. The cars had been deliberately sabotaged on the production line. The central control modules were programmed to fail exactly 90 days after their first engine start, Maya said, pointing to a string of error codes marked with precise timestamps. Tony stepped in closer, his eyes locked on the screen. "Dear God." "This is real, completely real," Maya confirmed. "And this is the best part." She clicked to a new tab. Internal documents, acquisition contracts, and technical memos filled the screen. All of these defective cars were quietly bought back by Porsche at well below market value. Then all they had to do was remove a single line of code, and the vehicles worked perfectly again. Resold as refurbished at over 300% profit. Sweat began to bead on Davidson's forehead. Where did you get these documents? This is confidential information. Maya smiled for the first time since the entire scene began. From the same source that told me you, Davidson, were receiving a 15% commission on every defective vehicle the shops under your network failed to fix. The shop fell into stunned silence. Davidson opened his mouth a few times, but couldn't form any words, like a fish gasping on dry land. You can't prove that, he stammered. Yes, I can, Maya said as she opened another window. On the screen was Davidson's corporate email inbox. Hundreds of messages exchanged between him and Porsche executives, displayed in plain view. Detailed instructions on which vehicles to overlook, a list of participating repair shops, and transaction records outlining the commission payments. Marcus Mayer's father stepped forward and read the emails over her shoulder. His expression shifted from disbelief to seething fury. Davidson, you knew the whole time. You knew exactly how to fix these cars. ChatGPT said, not just knew, Maya continued, pointing to a specific email. He ordered technicians not to use software diagnostic methods. Look at this. Focus on traditional diagnostic procedures. Do not mention the possibility of reprogramming. Declare the vehicle unrepairable after 48 hours. Jake, the youngest mechanic in the shop, stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. You made us look like fools. How many nights did we stay late struggling with problems we couldn't solve using the methods you forced on us, while you were pocketing money? Davidson lashed out one last time. He's a hacker, a criminal. You're going to trust a child who illegally accessed the system? Davidson shouted, desperately clinging to the last shred of his authority. Maybe not, Maya replied calmly. But they will. He clicked once more, her laptop screen switching to a live stream on the shop's Facebook page. At that moment, 847 viewers were watching, the number climbing rapidly. I started the stream the moment I accessed the system, Maya explained, her eyes still locked on the screen as Davidson's face turned pale. I thought it was time people found out why their cars never got fixed. You recorded all of it? Tony asked, almost in disbelief. Every word he said. Maya nodded gently. Below the live stream, hundreds of comments scrolled like a waterfall. Is that Davidson from Central Motors? This guy took $3,000, 0 cents from me, and said my car was beyond repair. My sister lost her job because her car broke down. Was it because of him? Has anyone called the FBI yet? This is national-level fraud. Davidson stared blankly at the screen, then around the shop, at the furious faces of the very people he'd deceived. Finally, he turned to Maya. Why? He asked, his voice now a defeated whisper. Maya closed the laptop. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the gravity of someone far older than 12. Because you bet that a black girl from a low-income neighborhood would never be smart enough to expose your entire scheme. She paused, locking eyes with Davidson. Because every time you looked at me, you only saw what you wanted to see. Someone too small to be a threat. In truth, Maya continued, I've been tracking this pattern for months, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. And you gave me that moment. The second you tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. In the distance, a police siren wailed. Growing louder, someone had called the authorities during the live stream. Davidson turned toward the shop's entrance, then back at Maya. Only now did he fully grasp that he had been completely outmaneuvered by a mind he had once dismissed. Maya stood her ground, calm as a warrior after her first battle, but it was a battle that had shaken an entire corrupt system to its core. Patient between a major automaker and a repair network, a system manipulating technicians on a national scale, might never have come to light without Maya's actions, and more importantly, could those at the bottom really change the game? 3 months later, a modern conference room in downtown Seattle. Maya, no longer the underestimated girl from the garage, stood, presenting before top executives from Tesla, Google, and Microsoft. Brilliant candle lighting, colorful patterning. Not to be missed, her presentation on real-time fraud detection in the automotive industry ended with a standing ovation from more than 200 engineers and investors. "Congratulations, Maya," said Jennifer Walsh, vice president at Tesla, smiling. "Your real-time vehicle fault tracking solution could revolutionize the industry. We'd like to offer you a $2 million 0-cents consulting contract to kick off the project." The same girl who had been dismissed as the mechanic's daughter 3 months earlier was now a name that the biggest companies in the world were eager to partner with. And the most incredible part, Maya's live stream hadn't just exposed a local scam. It went viral, racking up over 15 million views, earning national media coverage, and inspiring millions of underestimated individuals just like her. Maya smiled, but her gaze drifted beyond the conference room, back to her father, the old shop, and the team that had once been misled, just like she had. "Thank you so much for this opportunity," Maya said sincerely. "But I need to talk to my family first." She paused briefly, then added, "And I have one condition." The executives from Tesla, Google, and Microsoft exchanged curious glances. "I want part of the project to be developed right at my dad's garage, with his team. Tony, Jake, and the others. They deserve to be part of this journey." At the same time, across town, Davidson was scrubbing the floor of a dingy, one-bedroom apartment. After a scandal that rocked the nation, he hadn't just lost his positions. He'd been federally indicted for fraud, sentenced to 18 months of house arrest, and fined $500,000. His wife had filed for divorce, taking half of the remaining assets. The 47 auto shops he once ran were liquidated to compensate hundreds of defrauded customers. Now he lived on public assistance, picking up odd consulting gigs for small garages. The very kind of places he used to look down on. "Unbelievable, taken down by a kid," he muttered bitterly, catching sight of Maya on TV as she accepted a national award for Outstanding Young Innovator. Back at the old shop, now renamed Thompson & Daughter Automotive Tech, Marcus stood quietly, watching his daughter explain engineering principles to a group of reporters. The shop had evolved into more than just a repair center. It had become a training hub where teens from low-income neighborhoods could learn about modern automotive technology. "Dad," Maya stepped away from the camera, smiling. "Remember when you told me to focus on school and stop messing with engines?" Marcus chuckled, eyes misty. "Looks like you were the one who had it right all along." Tony came over, holding a tablet displaying the new diagnostics interface Maya had developed. "You know, Maya, we've been doing this for 30 years and thought we knew everything about cars, but you showed us there's still so much to learn." "It's not because I knew more," Maya replied gently, "but because I saw things differently." She looked up, eyes full of quiet wisdom. "You already knew what to look for. You were just being kept from finding the answers." Jake, now head of the electronic diagnostics division, nodded, voice thick with emotion. "This is more about justice than any adult I've ever met." 6 months after the incident, Maya's software system had been adopted by over 2,000 auto repair shops nationwide, uncovering and correcting countless cases of deliberate component sabotage. She also founded a nonprofit, Clean Codes, offering free automotive tech training for youth in underserved communities. At a guest lecture in a local high school, a 14-year-old boy raised his hand. "Maya, how were you brave enough to take down someone like that? He had money, power." Maya smiled, thinking back to that day at the shop. "You're right. At first he was stronger than me. He had money, influence, and control over my dad's job." She paused before continuing. "But he made one huge mistake." "What mistake?" the boy asked. "Helmut confused power with intelligence, and he mistook age and skin color for weakness," Maya said firmly. "When you underestimate someone because of prejudice, you give them the biggest advantage of all." So the room fell completely silent. Every student was hanging on to her words as if listening to a legend. "Davidson thought he understood my limits before he even knew who I was. Maya finished, her gaze fixed ahead, as if she could already see the next 100 doors waiting to be opened. Heron was lazy, arrogant, and careless, Maya added, her voice calm but razor-sharp. He never thought I could be a threat, so he didn't bother protecting himself from me. A shy girl in the back row raised her hand. But what if you had failed that day? What if you couldn't prove him wrong? Maya laughed, not with arrogance, but with certainty. I couldn't fail, because by the time I was challenged, I already had the answer. She paused, eyes glowing with confidence. I spent months studying that problem. When he gave me the stage, I was already 100% ready. The best revenge, Maya concluded, her voice cutting through the air like a message etched in stone, isn't dragging down those who hurt you. It's becoming so exceptional they regret ever underestimating you. 2 years later, Maya is now studying engineering at MIT through a special program for gifted students, while still remotely running her consulting firm. As for Davidson, the man who once held regional power, he's unemployed. He's tried repeatedly to find work in the auto industry, but the stain of his past follows him everywhere. The last time anyone saw Davidson, he was applying for a junior technician position at a garage on the outskirts of town. The shop owner, recognizing the familiar name from the news, bluntly declined. "We don't need someone who once deceived an entire industry." What do you think is the sweetest form of revenge? Is it bringing down the villain, or is it rendering them completely irrelevant? Write your most profound answer. Someone out there might need it. Maya proved a truth that's often forgotten. Revenge isn't about lowering yourself to your opponent's level. It's about rising so high that their existence no longer matters. From a moment of public humiliation meant to belittle her, she built the foundation of a career that transformed an entire industry. The girl who was once challenged to fix the unfixable car didn't just make that engine run again. She helped repair a rotten system. She created opportunities for hundreds of young people who had once been dismissed, and showed the world that the greatest mistake anyone can make is judging a person by how they look. If Maya's story touched your heart, help spread it. Because sometimes the world needs people like her to remind us. True power isn't in what you control, it's in how you choose to use your mind. Leave a comment. I've been underestimated, but I'm still here. And if you've ever risen above bias, defied expectations, or made someone see you in a new light, share your story. You never know, you might just be the inspiration a future Maya is waiting for.